The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Star Trek Prodigy Returns and the episode titled Kobayashi. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks. Folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. We have some of your listener feedback, and I want to encourage you to remember to like The Secrets of Star Trek on our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and be sure to leave us comments in both places. We'd love to hear from you. And I want to tell you about another show on the network that I'm sure you'll enjoy called Catholics of Oz, where we have Lindsay, Lino, and Caroline get together, our friends from Oz or Australia, who get together every fortnight and talk about fun things, including science, things going on in the Catholic Church, movies and TV shows and games and that sort of thing. So doubly check it out. It's at sqpn.com/Oz or wherever you find fine podcasts. So, Jimmy, we have Prodigy has returned. Kobayashi, it's called. It's the in fact, but I was going to ask you for a recap, but I want to tell folks first that we had 5 episodes of the first season of Star Trek Prodigy. Then they took a break where we got the half of the fourth season of Discovery, and now we've returned for another 5 episodes of Prodigy. And so, Jimmy, could you give us a recap of this episode, Kobayashi?
Last time, Gwen's dad left her to be choked by carnivorous vines. So she threw in her lot with the other kids and hit the turbo booster on the ship, getting them out of there and leaving her dad to eat space dust. This time, they come out of warp or super warp and find out that they're 4,000 light years away in the Gamma Quadrant. The rest of the kids want to go to the Federation, but Dal won't hear of it. Gwen is depressed because of the way her dad betrayed her and wonders why he would choose the ship over her. We then get a flashback to 17 years ago when the diviner chose to have her as his genetically engineered mini-me and planned to have her replace him in order to keep their race going, but it still doesn't explain the ship. She and her dad are the last 2 of their race, and Gwen thinks they've never had contact with the Federation. But when trying to figure out what the purpose of the protostar is, they discover that chunks of Janeway's memories are classified. And Gwen is unexpectedly able to unlock them using the language of her home planet Solemn. They learn that the protostar was, as expected, a prototype starship that was the fastest in the Federation, though they still don't know why it was sent to the Delta Quadrant. Meanwhile, Dal has found the protostar's holodeck, and Janeway taunts him into trying the Kobayashi Maru test to teach him more about being a captain. Despite it being an unwinnable scenario, Dal tries it more than 100 times using holograms of famous officers, including Spock, Scotty, Uhura, Beverly Crusher, and Odo. In extreme frustration, he attempts a highly stochastic solution and almost succeeds, and Spock then teaches him the value of listening to his crew. He decides to listen to the other kids and go to the Federation, but before he can make this announcement, they see a fragment of a hologram in which Captain Chakotay, the apparent original captain of the protostar, was in some kind of emergency situation. The end.
Okay, good summary. So I kind of want to go to the behind the scenes bit, because Father Cory, you found an article that interviewed the scriptwriter for this episode and talked about how they came up with this concept and what they were trying to do with this. And I thought it was very interesting. It revealed a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. He wanted to, of course, he wanted to take the Kobayashi Maru scenario from Star Trek II, right? Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, Wrath of Khan.
Where you had the cadet was playing captain, and then you had the senior crewmen, you had Uhura and Scotty and others playing their roles on the bridge. And he wanted to take that and move that into this. But he wanted to take, characters from throughout the history of Star Trek. So he got Gates McFadden. She actually voiced herself for this. This wasn't pre-recorded. And Odo was supposed to be, Rene Auberjonois was supposed to do his part, but then he died while the script was being written.
Yeah.
So he then took Odo, of course,
audio
clips from different episodes for Odo and Uhura and of course Spock and Scotty.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that if you listen to it, you can hear that they don't match up. You can tell they've been manipulated, but they're not perfect match. But
I wonder why they didn't get Nichelle Nichols to do Uhura, because she's still alive.
She's still alive, but I don't think she's in very good health.
She has from what I've saw, I think she's suffering from dementia. She's in very ill health.
But she also only had a couple of lines anyways. But but he wanted to pull in all these characters from the past, and I think, in my opinion, does it very effectively. I mean, it's a good way to bring these characters in, and of course, lines I'm sure people have already gone through and figure out where each line came from, and things like that. And some are very yeah. I was gonna say some of them are very recognizable. There's the one about you remind me of another captain of the Enterprise, you know. So
yeah, that's from the Reunification Part 2 with Spock, with Leonard Nimoy and Patrick Stewart, and we also have the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and that's Star Trek 2, and
it was an interesting idea that they did this, because the whole idea one of the ideas behind Prodigy is to introduce Star Trek as a franchise to a new young generation. And so the presumption is a lot of kids watching this on Nickelodeon may not know anything about Star Trek. And so by doing it this way, you've sort of introduced seeds of all of these other shows. So you've got the original series, you got Deep Space Nine, you got TNG, you're introducing all of these other shows, and of course Voyager, to this young generation, and kind of giving them the breadth of what's out there, the possibilities of what else is out there in Star Trek. So it's kind of an interesting idea.
Well, and then there's also a hint, and it goes by very quickly, where Dallas says, well, I've already got a captain. Who's this JT Kirk guy?
Yeah.
And just throws it out there real quick.
Yep.
I like how he, between takes, so we didn't see him give these nicknames, but we saw him using these nicknames that he's given each of the holodeck characters. And the way he got these, the holodeck says to him, pick your crew, and it shows him thousands of options, and he eventually just says, just give me some of your best, and these characters appear.
Right.
So they're kind of a random selection of the best, and he gives them each a nickname. It's the older Commander Scott or Captain Scott. So when James Doohan had a mustache, so he calls him Mustache.
Yep.
He calls Spock Pointy Ears. He calls Uhura Earpiece, because she's got the little earpiece she listens through, even though she's at the helm rather than the communications console. And he refers to Odo as Jelly Man. And then Gates McFadden, or he refers to Dr. Crusher as Big Red.
Big Red.
And, and so I like the nicknames. Now, of course, the fan obsessive question is, why is Odo one of these characters when Odo was a member of the Bajoran militia and not the Federation? And the answer that is in the article that Father found is, well, he technically wasn't a member of the Federation, but he was on the Defiant a lot. And he played a major role in ending the war with the Dominion. And so they've got his records on file like other people who have served alongside Starfleet officers, even if they weren't technically members of Starfleet.
Yeah.
And should also mention that the setting for this is the Enterprise D bridge.
Yes, it's the D bridge.
All this is happening on the Enterprise D bridge.
Yeah.
It's on the bridge.
So going back to the beginning of the episode, they have, as you mentioned to me, they came out of Proto Warp, and they're 4,000 light years into the Gamma Quadrant. So this ship is faster than anything we've ever seen on Star Trek. And it's got this Protostar engine. If they'd had this back in the Voyager series, there would have been no series. Voyager would have got home right away. And so it makes sense that Chakotay would be the captain of this, given he was the first officer on board a ship that had to travel to the Delta Quadrant. So that makes sense.
It does. Now, it does bring up the question if officially this is supposed to be, according to the writers, this is set 5 years after Voyager returned home. And yet the Protostar has been on the planet for more than 17 years, because we know that it's been there longer than that. So this brings up the question, at some point, there's going to be time travel involved.
Possibly.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that the dating numbers have been bothering me because it doesn't quite work within the timeline. But yeah, if there's time travel involved, that would answer that.
By the way, Dom, you're right that there would have been no Voyager. It may be a Voyager miniseries, but they would have got at 4,000 light years a jump. They would have crossed the 70,000 light years they needed to do in just 18 jumps.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems like that this is a pretty, maybe not instantaneous travel, but this was, they weren't traveling at super warp for weeks or months. I mean, this was with a few minutes they went, they went 40,000 or 4,000 light years.
Yeah.
I like that they gave us a marker that at least sort of kind of means something. It's like, okay, we're now in the Gamma Quadrant.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we know the Gamma Quadrant because that's where the other end of the Bajoran wormhole comes out.
So we may be seeing some more Deep Space Nine references coming up.
Yep. Maybe even the Dominion would be interesting.
Maybe Odo again, because that's where he ended up, was on the Founder's homeworld.
That would be interesting if they brought in another actor to do Odo's voice in that case.
Or,
same routine.
Handled it this way again.
Yeah. So we start with Dal is playing the silly addictive AR, augmented reality game from the TNG episode The Game.
Yeah, which they even point out how lame that is, because Janeway says, would you rather use the holodeck or continue playing your lame little cone and disc game? And for people who may not remember, this was fairly early, it wasn't first season, but it was a fairly early Next Gen episode where there was this game where you put on this tiny little fragile virtual reality headset that's really, it looks like a couple of straws pointed at your eyes.
Yeah.
And you see this, looks like a chessboard, and wobbly cones rise up out of the chessboard, and your goal is to maneuver a disc into being swallowed by one of the cones. And when you do that, it stimulates the pleasure center in your brain. So the game is highly addictive and is actually part of an invasion strategy.
Right. I'm kind of curious where he found it. Maybe he replicated it, found it in the database and replicated it to play with.
Yeah, I hope that they have modified it so that it's no longer highly addictive.
Well, and it shows up in Lower Decks too a couple of times, actually. Somebody's playing it at one point, and then it's in the collector's ship next to a bust of Picard. and believe it or not, this might be depressing, Jimmy, but this actually was a 5th season TNG episode.
Oh, right. Wow. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Because it's so lame.
It is. It really is.
And it introduces Ashley Judd as the Wesley Crusher love interest in that one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So there's this conflict in the crew. The crew wanted to go to the Federation because the Diviner's still after them, and they see the Federation and Starfleet as safe haven from him. Mm-hmm. But Dal, I'm not sure if I like this aspect of the character, but by the end of the episode, they've kind of had him develop away from it a bit. But he's got this inferiority complex that makes him very much braggadocio, very much suspicious of everyone else, a little bit paranoid, where, I'm in command, and the Tellarite character points out, I gotta remember to write down the name. Jenkum Pog, thank you. Kind of points out, like, you're sort of the self-appointed captain, by the way. We're tolerating you to be captain, but you made yourself captain. You're not the real captain, sort of thing. But so he's got this, and I'm not sure if I really like that aspect of them, the way they made this character. It's kind of a trope in kids' TV programming.
Yeah, I find it a little cliched as well. On the other hand, I don't have, and I don't like aspects of the way they write Dal. But I think they lean too much towards this braggadocio, I'm going to do my thing, man persona. On the other hand, I can see why he wouldn't want to go to the Federation, and I can see why he wants to be captain, because he has just escaped from a prison planet where he had no control at all, and wanting to have control of the situation he finds himself in is a human impulse. If you've just been through a traumatizing experience where you lacked control, control is the thing you want most. And wanting to be captain makes sense from that perspective. And then also, since he's just come out of an unjust prison, he's afraid of unjust prisons, and he's stolen a high-tech starship.
Right.
Right.
Maybe
exactly.
you don't want to go to the owners of the high-tech starship lest they throw you in an unjust prison as well.
Yeah, and take away.
I just happened to find this. I just happened to find this in a cave somewhere. Gee, I don't know where it came from. Huh.
Right.
And as Dom was going to say, take away your control again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we have Gwyn, and I kind of like how Gwyn is developing. She's an interesting character. She's in sick bay recovering from her injuries from the last episode, and she's starting to. She's been rejected by her father. Her father had left her to die, as you mentioned in the recap, Jimmy. And so now she's sort of left without a place in the universe and is kind of reaching out to this crew, and especially to Dal. And she, thanks him for coming back for her. And Dal says, "Oh, Janeway wouldn't let us leave without you," which deflates her. But it kind of turns out, and if I didn't remember until they pointed out at the end, he actually was the one who insisted that they go back for her. That's what it was. And so
he was being self-deprecating there by making it sound like Janeway insisted when really it was him.
Right. He didn't want to look, in his mind, look weak for being friendly toward someone who should be his enemy or something along those lines.
And of course, I think we kind of expected that we would start to see the crew coming together more and see her becoming part of the crew when about this time. So
yeah, so it's all paint by numbers so far.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Janeway introduces them to the holodeck, Jankum-Pog and Dal, and so they get to go to several different places, including as we see Andoria 4, so it's a snowy place.
Murph ends up there and is freezing on this planet and can't figure out how to get out.
That's right. They go skydiving on Ceti Alpha 5. That's the Wrath of Khan planet. They end up at a Caliphate gladiatorial tournament on Vulcan. They go to Dracula's castle, and they end up in a Jane Eyre novel as well. So
and Jane Eyre was the kind of holonovel that Janeway would run on Voyager. But I love that, we have these outer space settings like Vulcan and Andoria and so forth, and Ceti Alpha 5, and then, or maybe you'd like to defeat Count Dracula.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I liked that.
Yep.
And so Dom, you'll get a kick out of this. The young man who was in the Jane Eyre novel was Dee Bradley Baker.
Oh, awesome. Who also does Murph. He's the voice of Murph as well. Oh, okay. That's fun. Dee Bradley Baker is also famous for doing a lot of Star Wars animated
very
voices.
very talented voice actor.
Yeah.
Murph is probably the simplest role he's played in a long time.
Yeah, because all he has to do is go brrr and stuff like that. Murph, for people who may not remember, is the slug that is part of the crew. He's the glowing purple iridescent slug that is hiding his true level of intelligence for reasons we don't know.
And can apparently eat photon grenades and just burp and fart.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's apparently indestructible, which is interesting. That should probably come up later.
Yeah. And there's not much to it. It's just, they may use it in the future, but there's not much to it. They need to give all of the characters something to do in the episode. And so the principal action is centering around Dal and Janeway and Gwyn. And so they give Rock Talk, who's the giant rock creature girl, and Murph their own subplot of Murph is eating unobtainium and photon grenades and nevertheless survives it after a comedic internal explosion. They also have Zero floating around advising Gwyn as she's trying to figure out what's going on with Janeway's classified memories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that nice moment where Zero kind of advises Gwyn about, you can belong to the crew, you have something to offer. It's very much a kids programming sort of message that, you don't think you have anything to offer, but you definitely have something to offer from whoever you are. And it's like, well, for the computer, I know languages and the computer can do all kinds of translations. But can you interpret?
Yeah, that's kind of what translation is.
I know.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah. I mean, she's yeah.
And it comes back later on in this Paint by Numbers dialogue session where she's got this stream of code for Janeway, and she's trying to figure out how to unlock the memories. And Zero, who is the floating Medusan in the orb, reminds her that and they say it together. It's like translation isn't just, I forget translation, it's interpretation. And somehow that reminder enables her to unlock the memories, even though there's they don't cash that out on screen in any way. It's kind of hand waving.
Yeah, it is. Then you mentioned that the flashback to 17 years prior. We have this conversation between the Diviner and Dreadnought, his robot servant, and they there's not a lot to that besides what you mentioned, except they do mention some concepts.
Something called the Order.
Right. So making a progeny is forbidden by the Order. That is what Dreadnought says. And they also give his species a name. They're the Von Nakot. So we have a name for them now.
I think we already had that, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I think they did mention that early on.
So, and Gwyn is a sort of, she wouldn't be a clone because she's a girl, but parthenogenesis or something?
That's why I said genetically engineered mini-me.
Yeah. I mean, that's really kind of what it is. So then Dal has the Kobayashi Maru, and he refuses to believe that he can't win. And
no one has told him he can't win, so he assumes there is a way to beat this game.
Yes, and he's persistent. If nothing else, he is not going to give up. And
the thing is, he really does beat it.
Yeah.
I mean, now I said it as he employs a highly stochastic solution, which I mean, he acts crazy. He does random crazy stuff. And he actually achieves the major objectives. The only reason he fails in the last time he does it, the only reason he fails is because he puts his feet up on a desk and accidentally hits a control. And other than which sends a missile to blow up the Enterprise D. Other than that, he's actually beaten the Kobayashi Maru. If he had not done that one last mistake, he would have completely won.
Well, now I've heard, this is fan theory, of course, but that the reason why the Kobayashi Maru is unwinnable is because it's designed to be unwinnable. That it keeps throwing things at you. There is no point where you can save the Kobayashi Maru. Oh, you killed 3 Klingons. Well, here's 5 more that just showed up.
Right.
That kind of deal.
And maybe the computer put the firing control of the under his foot, as a way to keep him from winning. Or I get that. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, he certainly he gets even as close to winning without cheating like Kirk did. So as you can. So it is impressive that he gets that far.
While we're on the Kobayashi Maru scenario, so the CGI for the characters, I think, varies in quality. I think Uhura looks the best. Odo second best. None of them are perfect because we've seen photorealistic picture. I mean, we've seen photos of these actors before. So representing them in CGI form is not going to capture all that. But I noticed that Crusher and Spock in particular have in their CGI design, they've got these really fierce looking eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, because I mean, I could kind of get with Spock maybe why you would want to make him having fierce looking eyes, but why Dr. Crusher?
Yeah. And the only thing I could think of is those were the 2 characters that they put the most, at least facial movement to.
Yeah.
And especially, Spock, of course, they move him even more, but and I know every time you do, you set up movements on these characters, it does take more processing power, it takes more time to set up the movement stuff. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. Maybe not.
Mm.
Yeah.
I also like when Spock is giving him the talk at the end about captaincy, that he does the live long and prosper, and he does the salute, and Dow leaps up and gives him a high five.
That was good.
That was good.
I also enjoyed the fact that he confounded in his stochastic solution, confounded the Klingons by blasting AC/DC's Thunderstruck at them, which is,
Yes.
I like to imagine that being in the databanks of the protostar that he discovers. And okay, so then we have the resolution of the Kobayashi Maru situation on the holodeck. When Zero and Gwyn are on the bridge with this whole trying to figure out what's going on with the protostar, they asked Janeway the protostar's mission and how it ended up buried on this planet. And she has this, my memory is classified. It's not erased. It's been classified. And
she does say that the protostar was sent to the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah.
And then she has a block from being able to say why.
And that the block is encrypted using Gwyn's native language, which
indicates it was installed after they arrived in the Delta Quadrant.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I had previously, from previous scripts, I had interpreted the name Solemn as being the diviner's proper name.
Uh-huh.
But in this episode, they established that it's the name of the planet that they're from. So
right.
I'm not sure what's up with that.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe there's some like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 where the planet and the person are the same or connected or something.
Yeah.
And then we had the ending of the episode with Hollow with a recording, not Hollow, but a recording of Chakotay in the captain's seat, which was
a hollow recording. It can be both. Chocolate on peanut butter.
There you go. And we knew that Robert Beltran was going to be showing up this season, and so here we have him again in the holographic form. So
he's here for like 4 seconds though, so I assume we're going to be getting more of that recording.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other notes on this episode? Anything else that came up for you, Father Cory?
Just going back to the timeline thing real quick. It said 17 years ago was stardate 43929, and that does fit with Voyager because Voyager's opening stardate for Caretaker was 48315.6. So for those who do the Stardate geekery, it does fit with the Voyager timeline and everything. So,
and
there was certainly loads of time travel on Voyager.
Oh yeah. And so I do kind of going back to that, but I do think that there's going to be something about this ship traveled far enough back in time, more than 17 years, because again, the diviners said that others had looked before him.
They could have been sent to the Delta Quadrant on a rescue mission to get Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Which would change their own timeline. But
yeah.
Right. But probably went too far back because again, if it was 17 years before, and the diviner said that people had been looking for years before that.
That is interesting. Okay. Jimmy, any other notes?
Nope.
Okay. So I did mention that we'd have some feedback. This was from our recent episode 187 on the Enterprise episode Fusion. And William Harvey sent an email. He said, I thoroughly enjoyed the show today, especially Jimmy's reference to Andy Griffith's pre-sitcom What It Was Football bit. Jimmy managed to seamlessly weave two of my favorite yet totally different television franchises into a single conversation. It put a great big smile on my face, and I have an abscessed tooth. So well done. Love the show. Keep up the good work, fellas.
Well, I hope your tooth gets better, but I do love being able to weave two totally different things together, like chocolate and peanut butter.
Like chocolate and peanut butter. Two great tastes come together. All right. Thank you, William. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Laura D., Marissa S., Rick M., Marty T., and Mitch G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you think of Star Trek Prodigy's episode Kobayashi. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode of Prodigy. And until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
It was a high five. And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.